in this module. I'm going to cover your insurances. We're going to cover the foundation. So if you're looking at your financial home, we're going to break this up into two halves. We're going to cover the benefits in your foundation, and then we're going to jump up to the roof and finish off with your roof, okay? Hopefully this advances. Okay. I'm not going to get back on my soapbox. I think I spent enough time on this yesterday. Do not forget to break ground first before you do any of this, and that means have an emergency fund. 3 to 6 months worth of income liquid. CD, money market savings account. Really important, okay? Protect yourself from bad debt. Will, documentation of your final wishes, control from the grave. If you don't have a will, I told you the state has a will on your behalf, okay? And don't forget your beneficiary designation supersedes your will. You listed 4 on your 1152 last paycheck and annual leave. On your 3102, you listed your beneficiary for your FERS pension benefit. And your 2823, your FEGLI. And on your TSP3, you listed your thrift. Review and update them every 3 to 5 years. We're going to talk life insurance strategies. Before I do, I want to talk disability benefits really quick here. I don't have it up here, but I was talking to Janet. She's been processing a lot of retirement disabilities. Am I allowed to draw on this? Okay, because they're not bringing paper, so if it doesn't erase, I apologize. But I want to talk disability benefits really quick here and just kind of go through it. They're processing, I guess, a lot of retirement disabilities here. Disabilities in the country, we're going up quite a bit. They're starting to lock down on it because it was putting a stress on Social Security, basically. But I want to talk about what you would get, the definition of disability, and what would happen if you become disabled. Now, the definition, listen, by the way, if you guys become disabled, you are entitled to a check from 2 different systems, FERS and Social Security. 2 different systems are going to come together to pay you your total benefit, to pay you what we call a retirement disability. Now, they have 2 different definitions of disability. It is easier to get a check under FERS. Okay, it's basically own OC, what we call own occupation, and that is you can't perform the duties that you're being evaluated on right now. If you can't do the job that you're being evaluated on right now and don't qualify for any other job in your same pay grade in low-cal, and the disability is only expected to last a year, you're eligible for a retirement disability check. So by their definition under FERS, you could hold down a check in the private, you could hold down a job in the private sector, collect a disability check, but it can't exceed. Once that income exceeds 80%, all income exceeds 80% of your adjusted gross income, they start cutting back the check. If you make a lot of money in another job, they'll take the entire thing. Okay, you can't profit off your disability. Okay, so it's called own OC. Social Security's definition is what we call any OC. If you can do any job, they have a 5-point test. A 5-point test to determine your disability, whether you're eligible. Final question is, can this person do any type of work? That's the final question on the 5-point test. Can they do anything? And if you answer, yeah, they can do something, they're going to turn you down. That's the reason they turn down most people on the first go around. Okay? So those are your 2 working definitions. So you qualify for one and not get the other. Now you have what we call short-term and long-term benefits. Okay? Short-term and long-term benefits. Short-term benefits are payable for 1 year. And what they're going to pay you is 60% of your high 3. You talked about your high 3 yesterday, right? They're going to pay you said you knew this, right? 60% of your high 3 minus a dollar for dollar reduction on any Social Security disability benefits that are payable for you. Okay, so I don't know what you guys make, but I want to write round numbers. I don't know, you might make, more, I don't know what you guys make, but I'm just going to put down you're making 100,000, just to keep the math easy on this, just to explain this. It's easy math, wouldn't that be? But it's easy math, okay? Okay, so 60% of my high 3 is 100,000. So that means I'm starting out at $60,000. Now, let's just say I'm entitled to look, you need to take a look at your Social Security statement, middle of page 2, see what you're entitled to under disability benefits. That's important if you're younger. I would take a look and know that number. Let's say you're entitled to $2,000 a month, okay, $24,000 a year, which is a little high, but this is high too. So if I get approved here, they're taking it off here. So in this example, what would I get? 36,000. Because I'm getting 24 here. I'm guaranteed my first year not to get above 60%. That's how it works. Guaranteed not to get above 60%. Is this benefit taxable or tax-free? I ask you guys this for a very specific reason. Is this taxable? Don't, because I know with disability benefits under the military, it's tax-free. This is taxable. So if I'm at 60, if I take out 20% for taxes, take 12 off of that, in this example, I'd be down to 48,000. I still have to pay for my life and health insurance if I want to keep it. Let's say that's $375 a month. I'm down to 43.5. That's a 57% reduction off of a high 3 of 100. That's a 57% reduction. See, my question is, that's the reason you got to work your worksheet. Could you live on that? Could you live on that? I don't know whether you could or not, but I would do a budget, make sure that that income is enough to pay your bill. Because if you look at that financial home you have, where do you think, on average, your expenses, if you become disabled, go up about 10, 15% in that range? Where do you think a federal employee goes to make up the difference in the drop of income? You're going to your thrift is where you're going, and you'll liquidate it. And you're allowed to do that penalty-free. But my question to you is, what type of impact is that going to have on your retirement now? That's the reason, conceptually, you protect your income first. Before you start building wealth, you protect your income. Okay? So always protect your income before you start building wealth, because you're going to liquidate your wealth if there's a threat to your income. Okay? Now, where did I put that eraser? Okay, now, long-term benefit starts year 2, and it goes all the way to age 62. All the way to age 62. And what they're going to pay you is 40% of your high 3 minus 60% of any Social Security disability benefits that are payable. So instead of 60%, it starts out at 40, starting in year 2 to age 62. So now I'm starting out at $40,000 a year. Let's work off the same $24,000. 60, what's 60% of 24,000? What is that? 12, 14.4? Yeah, I'm not. Is that my 14.4? 60%. So if I get approved here, 60% of that, yeah, would be 14.4. So they take 14,000, 60 cents on the dollar off of here. If I get approved over there, so I would be down to $25,600 because I'm getting 24 here. I'm below 50% of income off my high 3. I'll give you, we'll round it up. I'll give you $400 a year as a gift here. We'll start out at 50. If I'm at 50,000, they're going to take 10% off. 20% off withholding. I'm down to 40,000. Life and health insurance. Let's say you're paying $375 a month for both, which is probably paying more. You're down to 35.5. Okay, 35.5. That's what, 65% reduction, about there in that range. Okay, so, just, you got to have a strategy for that. Okay, and there's different things you can do. Now, I don't know what's available here as far as disability benefits that, additional disability benefits you guys can get through the GARD or whatever, but that would be a solution to this. Okay? But that's what they would pay you. Any questions on that? I just wanted to kind of board this out before we get into life insurance. Okay? Jen, anything you wanted to add to that? I just went through the numbers and the definition. Anything you wanted to add? Because you're processing a lot of them, so anything you'd like to say?
Yeah, so what Mr. Lentz is talking about is a regular disability.
Regular disability, right? Correct. Public,
so
yeah. Okay. And the good thing is, you know what they do? Janet was mentioning it to me. She didn't mention it, but she will. If it happens here, she simultaneously puts you in for both, because it shortens the time frame. I mean, if you get turned down here, it automatically you're already going through public law, and you switch over to that system. So that's nice because it delays. I mean, retirement disabilities take a while to process because they need a statement from you. They need an application from you with 3112, I think. They need a doctor's statement and a supervisor's statement saying you can't do your job. So that does take a while, yes.
And under public law, you can come back to the federal sector, right? But if you come back, that public law disability stops altogether. And we still have one person. So you're going to have to, if you come back to the federal government, you're going to have to start stashing that money away. How long has Matt still been getting his? So there's one employee, yes, and he hasn't stopped. So just know that once you come back, you're going to take back all that money that you were getting under public law from the time you started back in the federal reserve.
Okay, thank you. All right, we're going to talk life insurance now. We're going to do that within the context of your FEGLI coverage, okay, your FEGLI, Federal Employee Group Life Insurance. If I can get this moving. Okay, we got 5 parts to your FEGLI program. We have basic, and we have your extra benefits. That's for folks under age 45. I don't have this is a pre-retirement class. I don't have a slide on it, but I'll cover it. I'll tell you what you got for, you're under 40. You guys are, right? You guys are. I'm going to cover extra benefits. And then I'm going to cover your optional coverages of A, B, and C, okay? Okay, now to carry this benefit into retirement, like I mentioned yesterday, you got to be in, these are the rules, and pay attention to this because the same rules apply to your health insurance. You got to be enrolled 5 years, and you got to retire on an immediate annuity. Okay? Why do they make you retire on an immediate annuity? They got to have a check to draw the premium from. Remember that rule. If there's no check to draw your premium from, you can't keep it. MetLife underwrites this program. If they don't have a check to draw the premium from, you can't keep it. In other words, what I'm trying to tell you is they're not going to send you a bill. It's got to come out of that check. There's no check to draw the premium from, you can't keep it. Okay? Now, I don't know whether this is much of an issue for you guys, but that creates a planning issue regarding MRA plus 10. You're granted an exception on this, and I don't know how important it is to this group of employees. Did he talk about MRA plus 10 yesterday? A little bit? All right, we got a planning issue here with life and health insurance. Let me explain what it is. There are some folks that do go out MRA plus 10, and the reason why they're doing it is they found another job someplace else that they want to take. So now all of a sudden, they got their 10 years, their minimum retirement age, and they're thinking, I don't want the 30% reduction of income, or 25%. That's a lot of money. I'm working. I don't need the money. Let's delay it to age 62 to avoid the early age penalty. Make sense? A lot of people do that, and they go, great, I'm good to go. Now, this is not as big of an issue for you guys because you got the TRICARE thing and all that. I get it. However, this is the thing. This person goes to the new employer and says, wait a second, I'm going to lose my FEHB coverage and my life insurance coverage here. Can you please tell me about my life and health insurance in retirement? What do you think a private sector employer will tell you? You don't get any. And see, I've had, and again, this is more, your straight up civilian service, but I've had people that have said, I can't take your job because I get benefits through the government, but I got to retire on an immediate annuity, and I don't want to lose the benefit. And they grant an exception on that. If you go out MRA plus 10 and defer your annuity, you cannot keep your life or your health insurance during time of deferral. However, it's kind of a mini pivot play. You got 31 days from the time you tell them to turn on the spigot. So you tell them, start sending me my money. I'm not working there anymore, or I'm 62 or whatever. You got 31 days to get back in both programs. So they grant an exception. Don't feel like you kind of have like golden handcuffs on. You got to stay because you need they'll grant an exception on MRA plus 10. But you got to be MRA plus 10. Okay? I mean, if you're 52 with 30 years in and you feel like going out voluntarily, you can't keep your health insurance coverage. I've had people that have done that. I'm like, are you crazy? They've been enrolled for 30 years. You got to be MRA with 10. Okay? But that is a mini pivot play. Also, MetLife will allow you to convert this to a permanent plan when you separate. You got 31 days to do it if you decide to do it. We'll talk about, MetLife will send you a list. If you wanted to do that, they'll send you a list of permanent products you can convert to. Now, the reason that people will do that, the ones who have converted, I have found, they're not healthy. They can't get coverage anyplace else. And they want to level out their premiums, because that's what permanent coverage is. You pay a level premium. Okay, I want to talk about life qualifying events. A lot of people, there's a lot of myths when it comes to your FEGLI, your life insurance. That's probably the least understood part of a person's benefits package is usually what I find. A lot of people think, and because of that, there's myths associated with this. A lot of people think that they're afraid to get in this because they think if they get in, they can't get out. It's kind of like gum on their shoe. Nothing could be further from the truth. You could walk out of here today and drop your coverage, and MetLife could not. They could care less. As a matter of fact, they hope one day you drop your coverage, as a matter of fact. Okay, it is easy to drop. Now, a lot of people think, I can get in this whenever I feel like it because who, quite frankly, really wants to buy this? So I can get in whenever. They'll take anybody that wants. No, it's not that easy to get back in. There's 3 ways in which you can get back in. Life qualifying event. Okay, that's the first way. And it's the things you're thinking of. Getting married, having kids, getting divorced, spouse dying, spouse getting laid off at their job. That would be a life qualifying event. Transitioning from Title 32 to Title 5, that doesn't count as a life qualifying event, by the way. But the things I just mentioned do. Another way of getting back in is an open season, which should be more popular as far as taking advantage of than it is. Did anybody take advantage of the last open season in 2016? Yeah, see, it's not very popular. I don't know why. It's a pretty good deal if you take advantage of it. But okay, nobody took advantage of the open season on FEGLI in 2016? Okay, I need to know that. That's kind of important. But okay, third way is providing medical information, applying for coverage. Applying for coverage. Okay, that means they can turn you down. You're applying. Okay, there's barriers to entry with all 3. Life qualifying event. Okay, now listen, if you have one of these events, all you have to do is submit a 2817 form to Janet. Well, Janet, if I'm volunteering you for things I shouldn't be, let me know, okay? But all I got to do is fill out, this is a FEGLI election form. It's an election form. All you have to do is provide proof of the event, submit it to Janet, and you're good to go. This is the barrier to entry. You got 60 days from the time the event occurs to get back in. I had 3 people alone last year miss this one that wanted to get back in. They were all first-time parents. And if you think about it, you can miss this one because of that, because you're more consumed with the event itself, and then you miss out. That's what happened 3 times last year. First-time parents. So be aware of that. You got a 60-day deadline on a life-qualifying event to get back in. Second way is providing medical information. Okay, let's say you dropped your coverage today and then you regretted it a few months later. You can apply to get back in, but you got to wait a year from the time you dropped your coverage. You'd have to wait till September 25th of next year to even apply to get back in. And they can turn you down. They're going to evaluate your health. There's a medical exam form. It's a 2822 form. You bring it to your doctor. Doctor examines you and sends that form to MetLife. They moved the office from Jersey City, New Jersey. It's in Scranton, Pennsylvania now. It goes there. Okay? You don't turn that into Janet. HIPAA regulations prohibit that. And the other thing is you don't get that form back because you could change it. It goes directly to MetLife from that doctor's office. They'll tell the doctor where to send it. MetLife will evaluate what that doctor wrote down, and they'll send you a decision. You're approved or not approved. That's it. It's a short menu. If you get a letter you were approved for basic. Read the letter. They'll say, you've been approved for basic. You got 60 days to tell us whether you want more coverage, and we'll give it to you through the optional coverages. Okay? Third way, open season. Not one really, it's usually weird, because usually I get at least 2 or 3 people. I was expecting 2 people that took advantage. Nobody took advantage of the open season. This should be a really popular way of getting back in. Let me explain what I mean by that. If they're having an open season on your life insurance, you could be terminally ill right now. And they have to let you back in if you want back in. Like if you're, I don't know if you ever heard of Alex Trebek, but he's got stage 4 pancreatic cancer. I mean, if they had an open season and he was, working for the federal government, he could walk in and go, give me as much coverage as I can get. And they have to give it to him, which is almost too good to be true. And in a way it is. There's a couple barriers to entry on this. The first barrier to entry is coverage doesn't take effect for a full year. So you had an open season in 2016, September of 2016. Your coverage didn't take effect till October 1st of 2017. So if you died a few months later, they wouldn't pay a claim. You're not paying premiums, but they're not paying a claim either. Okay? That's how it works. So that's still a pretty good deal, though. I mean, just got to live a year. That's still not bad. Here's the second barrier to entry. You rarely have open seasons. You're eligible for them every 5 to 7 years. Your last open season was 2016. The last time you had one before that was 2004. The only time you have an open season is when they're making an actual change to the program. And this is what I want to ask you right now. Every planning opportunity comes off the answer to a why question. Why did they make it easy for you to drop but difficult for you to get back in? Why? Because everybody thinks it's the direct opposite. Why do they make it easy for you to drop but difficult for you to get back in?
Because they don't want to pay you.
Exactly. I mean, think about it. If you raised your hand going, can I have some more life insurance, please? What do you think the reason is? You're getting bad news from a doctor. I mean, if you get in this whenever you wanted to, why would you even bother enrolling? You'd wait till you got bad news and then get in. And then pay a month's worth of premiums, have a nice death claim paid out. Well, do your research. MetLife is not a charity. They're not going to just like take that and pay out claims. They're going to pass it on to the remaining people in the group. So everybody else left over is going to get a premium increase. You're healthy, you get a premium increase. What's going through your mind? Gee, I wonder if I can find a better deal on the outside. And guess what you'll find? A better deal on the outside. Listen, what I'm trying to explain to you is this, because people tell me all the time, I don't get this stuff. If you remember this one working definition that I'm about to tell you, you'll understand all you need to know about insurance, period. And if you know this definition, it's going to help you make the right decisions when it comes to all of your insurances, okay? And it's this definition. It's a company's definition of insurance. Insurance is nothing more than a pricing of risk. That's all that it is. Insurance is a pricing of risk. That's it. I mean, if you think about it, an insurance company does not own a printing press where they print money out. They bring in money in the form of premiums, and they send that same money out in the form of claims. That's all that they do. I mean, if they're not bringing in enough money to cover claims, they got to do one of two things: go out of business or raise their premiums. That's it. That's all that they're doing. It's all a pricing of risk. Now, your definition of insurance is you're transferring risk. They've got to price it. You need to remember this, because I am going to be Ed'll answer most of your questions on this stuff. I'm going to prove to you I'll prove it all to you. I will prove it that it is all a pricing of risk. I'm going to prove your life insurance is, your health insurance. Medicare is a pricing of risk, and I'm going to prove it to you. So most of your why questions, like why is Medicare written in that way? It's a pricing of risk, and I'm going to show it to you. And so is your long-term care program. Anybody in the long-term care program got the 81% premium increase? Did anybody get that? Okay, they raised the premiums on your long-term care 81%. The average premium increase from 1.0 to 2.0. Do you know why that happened? John Hancock was sending out $1 million a month more in claims they were bringing in premiums. They didn't even want to bid on the business when it came up for renewal. They were like, we're not interested. And they were like, nobody else wanted it either. So OPM was like, can you come back? And they were like, the only way we want to keep this book, because we're not in the business to go out of business, is we got to raise the premiums 81%. It got so underbid on the first go-around, everybody wanted it. They got wiped out in claims. So that's what happened on the second go-around. I'm going to tie that in later on, but it's all a pricing of risk. Remember that, okay? Because that's going to help you make the right decisions when it comes to this stuff. Okay, now, let's talk about your basic. Everything works off of your basic. If you don't have basic, you don't have any of this, okay? Because I've had, again, I don't want to talk above or below anybody here, but I've had people that didn't even know whether they had this. If you don't know, you have it. They put you in it. Okay, you got to decline coverage, so you probably have it if you don't know. Now, it's easy to figure out how much coverage you have. You take your annual income, round it up to the next 1,000, and then add $2,000 on top of that number, and that's your basic. So again, let's keep our math easy here. Let's say you're making $97,500 a year. Round it up to 98, add 2 to the 98, your basic's $100,000. Now, that premium is subsidized by the government. The government pays 1/3 of the premium. You pay 2/3 of the premium. Okay, your premium is 32.5 cents per thousand. Premium stays the same while you work. Premium stays the same while you work. 32.5 cents per thousand. That's not going to change. Don't confuse it with your optional coverages. Basic stays the same while you work. If you see a bigger deduction coming out, it's because you're making more. Cost per thousand stays the same. Okay? Now you have a rider on this plan. It's called the Accidental Death and Dismemberment Rider. This rider will fall off the day you retire, but you have it right now, okay? And this will be paid out if you have a financial loss through an accident, okay? Now, the amount of money your beneficiaries or you get are based on the type of loss you had. For instance, if you died by accident, this would pay out a death claim. That would be the equivalent of your basic. So if you had $100,000 of basic and you died by accident, this would pay out another $100,000 to your beneficiaries. It would be like double indemnity. Now, if you had an accident where you lost a limb or an eye, they pay out half the basic amount. And if you had an accident where you lost two or more limbs or lost both your eyes and were blind, they would pay out the full basic amount. Okay? This rider falls off the day you retire, but you have it right now. Okay? Now, this is the first question you're going to be asked. Remember those forms I talked about yesterday and that Janet hit on? Well, on your 2818 form, your SF 2818 form, in your retirement packet, first question you're going to be asked is, what do you want to do with your basic? First question you're going to be asked, what do you want to do with your basic? And the first two options that you have, this death benefit reduces. Now, the amount of the reduction will be based on what you elect, but the reductions start at age 65, whichever's later. Whenever you retire, whichever's later. So if I retire at age, I've had people retire way past age 65. If they took a reduction option, it would start immediately. Now, most of you are going to probably retire before then, if not all of you. So your reduction would start at age 65 if you elect a reduction option. Okay, now the first option is a 75% reduction option. Now, if I elect this option, what happens is my death benefit reduces by 2% per month until a little over 3 years, I'm down to 25%. Okay? So again, just humor me so I can keep the math easy. Let's say I'm making $100,000. It would gradually reduce down to 25. It would reduce by 2% per month until I'm down to 25,000. Now this option's pretty popular because once I hit age 65, I don't have a premium on it. Okay? And it stays at 25%. It stays at the 25,000. Is this death benefit automatically payable upon your death? Yeah, absolutely, if they claim it. Death benefits have to be claimed. Okay, they've got to fill out the beneficiary claim. They've got to fill out the claim forms as the beneficiary. And guess what else they need? They need a death certificate with a raised seal. Why am I telling you this? It's been my experience that most people know what they have with life insurance, but what they're paying for. 65, premium stops. You lived age 84, 19 years, you haven't paid a premium. What's the likelihood you're going to remember you have this, let alone tell somebody? Make a copy of all your paperwork and put it someplace safe. I'm not talking, if it's your spouse, there's not that's more seamless. You got folks helping at OPM with all of that. I'm talking kids and grandkids. You outlive your spouse, still got this thing going on. Kids got to claim it. And so, what I'm trying to tell you is make a copy of everything you fill out and tell your family members where you put your paperwork. Okay, I'm not telling you to brief them on all this stuff, but make a copy of your paperwork so they can go through it and see what they're entitled to upon your death. Death benefits go unpaid all the time, inside and outside the federal government, because the beneficiaries don't know they're entitled to it. So make a copy of your paperwork. Okay? Now, second option, 50% reduction option. That benefit reduces by not 2% per month, but 1% per month. So in this example, 100,000 would reduce to 50, 1% per month. Now I got a premium on this one, 71 cents per thousand. Let me explain how the math works on this one. In this example, I showed you from 100 to 50, but they charge me based on the original amount of 100. So 50,000, the premium would be $71 a month. Okay? $71 a month. Again, nobody's asked that yet, but everybody asks, is that a good deal? It's all relative. If you're not healthy, it's not a bad deal, but that's what they charge you. Okay, third option is no reduction. Okay? No reduction, leave it as it is. You can do that, but you're going to pay $2.13 per thousand. That's $213 a month for 100,000 in this example. And again, whether or not it's a good deal is all relative to your health. If you're not very healthy, it's not necessarily a bad deal. Okay? But that is in fact what they charge you. And you will be asked this question, what you want to do on your 2818 form. You're going to be asked what you want to do, what decision you want to make here. Anybody have any questions on this? Feel free. Nothing? Usually I'm getting something. I got to point out some things then.
One pivot point, that's it? You get one time to make that decision?
Thank you. Good question. Can I change my mind? Let's go off of that. Can I change my mind? Excellent question. Insurance is a pricing of risk, right? Just shake your heads. It is. Okay, so if it's a pricing of risk, do you think they'll let me go from this option, 75% reduction option, down to here? If it's a pricing of risk? No way. You're getting a freebie, now you want them to pay out the full amount? No. Do you think they'll let me go from here down to here? Yeah. Absolutely. They've been collecting $213 a month on you. Now you're saying pay off, you know what I'm saying? They'll always let you push off the bet. Always let you push off the bet because it's a good deal for them. That makes sense? This is what you're allowed to do in retirement. Let me break this down in more detail. You're allowed to go from here down to here, or here down to here. That's it. You can only reduce down to the lowest common denominator and stop your premiums.
For a life-changing event, do you still have to have 5 years in the system to be able to continue that on?
Yes. Yes. Absolutely. 5 years applies. Okay, that's an important question. So let's just use an optional thing. Can I use that as an example? So let's say he has a life qualifying event. He's got basic and he adds on, I'm going to cover all the options, but let's say he goes, you know what, I could use some option B. And he picks it up. And then he wants to retire in, let's say, 3 years. He wants to retire in 3 years. Option B he can't keep. And I'll cover the options. But he can still keep his basic. He's been enrolled in basic forever. He can keep that basic. He just can't keep the option B. He's got to be enrolled in that option B, that pickup from that life qualifying event for that 5 years. It applies that way. Good question. That's an important one. This is the other one I want to point out, guys, ladies and gentlemen here. When do these premiums become operative? I'm sorry, sir. 65. So you become operative at 65. Most of you aren't going to work to age 65. What am I trying to tell you? I get the proverbial call from a lot of classes I teach, calling me a liar because they said the 75% reduction option's free. You're a liar. I'm paying a premium. And I go, well, how old are you? Oh, I'm 60. Operative 65. You got a premium that's different. Here's how it's priced. If I take the 75% reduction option, guess what? They charge me like I'm an employee, 32.5 cents per thousand. I still have my 100, by the way, too. It's like I'm still an employee. And then when I hit 65, it goes to nothing. Does that make sense? Now, if I choose this one, the 71 cents per thousand, I pay $1.03.5 per thousand. They add the 32 plus the 71. And then when I hit 65, it drops off to 32, and I go down. So I pay $103.50 a month for this. I still have my 100, and then I drop to 71. Make sense? On this one, I pay $2.45.5 per thousand. I pay $245.50, drops to $213 in this example. The 32 falls off when I hit 65. Make sense? It's pretty simple, right? Because I always get that. I get somebody calling me going, what do that's not true. And it is. It's just this becomes operative at 65. Okay? Any questions? Any other? Okay. Okay. They'll always let you push off the bet. Remember that. Okay, let me cover the optional coverages. We're going to go through oldest to youngest. We're going to go through the oldest one here, and it's option A. It came out in 1968, a long time ago. This was designed to be similar to your basic. It's an additional $10,000 worth of coverage. It's got accidental death and dismemberment coverage attached to it, payable in the same percentages as what I just mentioned. Okay, now listen. This stayed at 10,000. Incomes have gone up since 1968. This stayed at 10. You can carry this into retirement if you keep your basic. To have any of your optional coverages, you got to have some form of basic. You're required. Okay? You can carry this into retirement if you meet the same requirements as basic. 5-year enrollment, retire on an immediate annuity. Now, the thing I want to point out on your optional all of your optional coverages, folks, see how the premium goes up every 5 years? On your optional coverages, your premium goes up every 5 years. Let me give you a little tip. On all your optional coverages, your biggest price jump occurs at age 60. 60 is the big price jump. Why? They want you to notice it.
They want you to stop and get out of it.
Yeah, why do they want you to notice it? They want you to drop it. None of this is big bucks. I get people going, why are you wasting my time? This is not even big bucks. But just want to point out something here. Do you see how your premium triples from 59 to 60? It triples. And what I'm trying to tell you is it's done by design. They know your premium triples, but if you hang in there 5 more years, once you hit age 65, there's no premium. And they're on the hook. They'd rather collect your money for 40 years, not pay out a nickel. I'm not knocking it, but I'm just explaining this is how it works. And wait till I'm setting up option B here in a second. But this is how this is designed. They want you to notice it so you drop it. Now the death benefit drops from $10,000 down to $2,500. It drops by 2% per month, levels off at $2,500, but they're on the hook for $2,500. Okay? Now, let me talk about the next one. The next one in the age of this FEGLI program, it's option B. This is the largest option you have in the program. Largest option to pick up coverage. It's even more than your basic. And what you have here is you can choose a number of multiples from 1 through 5. A multiple is your annual income rounded up to the next 1,000. That is a lot of coverage. I mean, that's a lot of coverage. If you're making $50,000, you can pick up $250,000 worth of coverage here. $100,000, $500,000. That's a lot. Okay, now, you see how your premium goes up here. I want to break this down in more detail so we can go through this. Listen, you have the option. You're going to be asked what you want to do with option B. You're going to be asked what you want to do with this. And basically, you have 3 basic options here. One, you can drop it and say, I don't want to keep it in retirement. 2, you could say, I want to hang in there and pay the premiums for as long as you can. And the offshoot of that is you could take a reduction option. That's kind of like option 2B or really option 3. And that is you could take a reduction option where you could pay your premiums to age 65. Okay, the premiums will stop at age 65. And what happens is it's no longer, you're not paying for it anymore, but the death benefit drops by 2% per month. And after 50 months goes by, it's down to nothing. Or you could reduce from 5 to 3 and it reduces by 2% per month. But most people will kind of go to age 65. If they're going to take the reduction option, they go to age 65, pay the premiums, and then it goes to nothing. Why would somebody do that? It's 4 years of free term. In that example, that would be a reason why somebody would do it. It's 4 years of free term. Okay? Now, I want to go through the pricing of this. And again, this is going to challenge you to think a little bit. But I want to go through this a little bit. You see the pricing structure on this? It's per 1,000. It's per 1,000. So, I want to point out, let's take a look at a 35-year-old. Let's just use easy math. Let's say they have $200,000 worth of coverage. $200,000. Okay, so they're paying, what do I have up there? 0.043 per 1,000. That's $8.60 a month for $200,000. That's a pretty good deal. I'd be pretty happy with that. And if you're under age 35, you probably are happy with that. That's a pretty good deal. You can see how the premiums go up. Let's fast forward here a little bit. Let's say you're 54. 54 years of age, it's 0.238 per 1,000. That's $47.60 a month. My opinion, I'd be happy with that. I would personally, I think I would, if I needed the coverage, I would probably be okay with that. I know plenty of 54-year-olds that still have this, and that's fine. Okay, now here's my point, though. Take a look at what happens at age 55. You see what happens? It almost doubles. Not quite, but almost. They go from $47.60 to $86.60 a month. Now listen, I'm not even saying it's a bad deal at this point. I know plenty of 55-year-olds to 59-year-olds holding on to this thing. They're like, they've decided that they want the coverage, need it, whatever. Yeah, they have their reasons. Here's my point. Take a look what happens. I said your biggest price jump was age 60. Take a look at what happens. Premium more than doubles. Do you see that? Premium more than doubles. So I want you to think about this a second, folks. Your premium quadrupled in 6 years. From 54, you were paying $47.60. Now you're paying $190.60 a month for that same $200,000. Listen, I'm not telling you to drop it. You just need to get in front of this. You need to start thinking about how much coverage you need and why you need it when you get into your 50s. because you could make the wrong decision on this. I've had people that have, what do you think happens when you turn 60? I've had this happen from people I keep in touch with that are federal employees who have been in our class. They turn age 60 and they look at their pay stub, and what do you think happens? What happened to my net pay? And they do their little research. They find out it's this. What do you think their reaction to that is? Boom, goodbye. It's not worth that. I've had a lot of people tell me that. Here's my point. You did it for the wrong reason. I've had people like 2 years later really regret that decision because they get diagnosed with something that's pretty bad and they're like, geez. I've had people tell me that, like, you know, they'll tell me about their health and they're like, I should have never dropped that coverage. And I'll ask them why. And they'll go, I turned 60 and all of a sudden I got hit with this huge premium increase, and I was like, I just didn't think about it, but I was like, it's not worth that. You just need to like think through how much coverage you need and why you need it. If you decide you don't need the coverage, well, get in front of it before they double it. But if they do that and you need it and you can't get coverage anyplace else, at least you know it's coming and you'll absorb it into whatever your bills are. Okay? So that's all that's what I'm saying. I've had people, regret it, but I've also had people regret not dropping it because they weren't aware of it and they got kind of, blindsided by it too. Get in front of it. So, sit down and think about how much coverage you need and why you need it. Now listen, let me take you through this a little bit more. Now, I've had some people that have said they've thought it through and they go, I need this coverage, need it. And I'll tell you another thing. At age 60, as high as that might seem to you, it's still cheaper than leaving a survivor benefit on your FERS annuity. People do the math on this and go, $190 a month for $200,000 is cheaper than leaving a survivor benefit. And it is at that point if you do the math on it. People hold on to it. I'll tell you the problem with that idea, though. It's cheaper now, not later. You're alive at age 65, it goes to $1.17 per thousand. That's $234 a month, $234 a month for that $200,000. Now it's about the same price. This might be a little bit cheaper, but it's around the same price. Problem is you're still alive at age 70. Take a look at that premium, $2.08 per thousand. And this is your survivor benefit. You replace this with a survivor benefit. Now you're at $416 a month for $200,000. Now this is more expensive. Now I know you're thinking, you're like, that's it. Well, it's easy. I would just drop it. Yeah, try telling that to your spouse. Your survivor benefit's gone tomorrow. Yeah, you want to be on the couch. I mean, my point is, this is what you're in now. And I'll tell you, this is the other thing. This gets psychological. I've had people go, yeah, $416 a month is ugly. But you know what? If I drop it, $234 a month was a waste of money if I die tomorrow. So you know what? I'm going to try to, maybe you reduce it. Maybe you try to hang in there. Problem is, at age 75, $3.90 per thousand. You can see where this is going. $780 a month. I mean, at this point, you're sleeping with one eye open. You think about it, right? And you got an 80% chance of living to age 84. Take a gander at that number. Take a look at that number. 572. You know what that translates into? $1144 a month. I mean, this is designed for you to drop. It's designed for you to drop. I mean, really, if you're paying $1140, you're doing it out of spite. You hate them so much, you're going to pay a claim on you. You care less whether it wrecks you. They're paying a claim on you.
Damn near paid what they're paying out anyhow.
That's the point. See, this is my point. That's my point. Listen, it sounds like I'm knocking this. I'm not. But this is, in fact, designed for you to drop. And if you doubt me, do the math yourself. Start at age 65, add up your premiums. If you lived to age 91, you will have paid more in premium than you get in death claim. And I didn't even add up the premium you paid while you were working. I started at age 65 and I added up. Break even's 91. So it's designed for you. You know the other reason why I know it's designed for you to drop? Your last 2 open seasons that you guys have had, your last 2, whenever they have an open season, they're making a change to the program, okay? That's the only time they have them. You know the last 2 open seasons you've had? You know what they've been doing? They've been cutting the premiums. They've been reducing the premiums at the younger ages and raising them at the older ages. Do you know that? They've been raising them at the older ages. Before 2004, an 80-year-old, you know how much an 80-year-old used to pay for this? $2.65 per thousand. $2.65. So an 80-year-old was paying $530 a month for $200,000. Now listen, that sounds like a lot of money. I want you to think about an 80-year-old. That seemed like a pretty good deal. I mean, if you live 4 years, $6,000 a year for 4 years. $24,000 in premium to get $200,000 tax-free. Math works really well. ROI is very good on that. There were a lot of 80-year-olds holding on to some form of this. And in that open season in 2004, they said, MetLife took a look at it. How many people were still in it at age that old? They said this was not designed for this. They almost doubled the premium. It went to $5.20 per thousand. So somebody at $530 on a fixed income is now paying $1,040. A new bill of $510 a month. What do you think that did? Got them off the rolls. And if they died the following month, they don't have to pay a claim. And they raised it another 10 this time around to $572. Now listen. It sounds like I'm knocking this. I am not. But this is the problem. People misuse this. And that's the reason you get people going, this stuff is a ripoff. It's not. You're using it for the wrong reasons. I'm going to tell you that right now. If you're thinking it's a ripoff. See, this is nothing more than 5-year level increasing term insurance. That's all that it is, folks. Do you know the percentage of term insurance that ends in a death claim in this country? Take a guess. I'm just curious. Some of you smarter guys, well, you're all smart. I mean, but some of you guys are pretty sophisticated here. What percentage of term insurance ends in a death claim in this country? 5%. It's between 1 and 2. That's a pretty good guess, though. Between 1 and 2. And I'm not knocking it, but this is designed for you to be dropping the coverage before you die. It ends in a death claim 1%, about between 1 and 2% of the time. And so here's my point. If you have a temporary need for life insurance, there's nothing wrong with this. But see, where people think this is a ripoff, they've come to the conclusion in their mind they have a permanent need for life insurance. And then they're angry about this. Okay? And you know, they got an investment guy. We can build your wealth or whatever. You don't need this anymore. And then all of a sudden you realize you do, and you're pretty PO'd because you want to leave enough money behind, and then you're angry at them. You know what I'm saying? So if you have a permanent need for life insurance, you're going to be one angry person if you live long enough on this thing. Now, if you have a temporary need, God bless you, man. Knock yourself out. Get as much as you can and you want on this thing. Now, listen. I want you to get value out of this stuff. So let me ask you a question. Give me an example of a temporary need for life insurance where this fits well. Give me an example. There's plenty of them. Come on. What's that? Maybe, but I want you to think more like in terms of finances, not like your health. Let's get away from that a second. I want you to think in terms of clinical approach financially.
Education for your kids.
Thank you. College education. Like I got 5 kids, so maybe I covered myself. I just paid my last bill to Duquesne, but my point is, thank God. But it ain't cheap. But once you get that last bill paid, get rid of it. If that's your objective. I'll give you another one. Mortgage. Right? You get your mortgage paid off, and that's the reason it was there. Why would you hold on to it? The reason's over. Get rid of it. Raising kids. Get them out of the house. If that's what it was there for, and you've raised your kids, get rid of it.
What about if you want to use it for legacy? You want to use it to pass on?
Be careful on that. You have more of a permanent need. I'm going to get into that in more detail. Please hold that thought, and I want you to redirect if I'm not clear on that question. I want you to redirect that, okay? But let's start more basic, because that is, a legacy is a permanent need. But I want to talk about that in more detail. Give me an example of a permanent need for life insurance, where I'd be one angry hombre here if I had this. Give me an example where I have a permanent need. There's a couple I can think of right off the top of my head.
Medical bills for a loved one, medical care for a loved one.
Yeah, you're going in the right direction. Let me be more basic than what you just mentioned. That's pretty specific. What about a special needs child? You mentioned medical. What about a special needs child? Okay, what about a disabled spouse? Maybe a spouse that maybe didn't get benefits from they worked for an employer that provided absolutely no benefits to them. These could be permanent needs, okay? I'm not saying, I have permanent coverage on myself. You know why? My wife has MS. So she didn't even get her 40 quarters in. Like if she couldn't even retire to get a Social Security check because she never got her 40 quarters in. She waitressed a few years. That was about it. But my point is, so that's the reason I got. See, the definition of a permanent need is anybody that is going to be depending on you and your income for as long as you live. See, I want to get into that more detail because that's kind of like an offshoot, but that is a legitimate one that you just mentioned. But basically anybody depending on you and your income for as long as you're going to live, like you're not going to outlive that obligation, then you have a permanent need. Now I don't know what you have. You might have one or the other. I have no clue. But you need to listen, it's a two-step approach. You need to sit down with your beneficiary spouse or whoever's depending on you and go, how much coverage do I need and why do I need it? And what type? Start there. You might say temporary, you might say permanent, you might say a little bit of both. I said a little bit of both, doesn't matter, but just pick what you want. And then go about figuring out how much coverage you need of either one or both.
Then you have to balance out against your survival benefit plan. You have to balance.
Exactly. See, yeah, and that's okay. Let's go into that a second. Let me come back. Let me come back to that 1 second. Temporary is easy. Add up all of your temporary obligations and cover yourself with this: mortgage, college education, raising kids, credit card debt, all of it. Cover yourself with this. God bless you, man. Go do it. Now, what you just said, permanent need, treat it like retirement planning, which is the direction you were going in. You go to your spouse and say, or who's ever depending on you, and go, hey, if I die, how much income would you need? Give me a number. Let the bidding begin, but get a number, right? Yeah. It's a little high. But my point is, you get a number, and then treat it like retirement planning. You add up everything you're going to leave behind income-wise if you die. I gave you a worksheet in your handouts that you can figure it out for yourself. Okay? I gave you a worksheet in there for you to figure that out. If you have any questions on how to use it, it's pretty simple. You guys are pretty intelligent people. If you have any questions on it, just give me a call or email me, and I can walk you through how to use it. But it's a pretty self-explanatory worksheet on figuring it out. Okay? Approach it clinically, guys. This is a values-based decision. Based on your values, not your retirement planner's values. Your values. Okay? Based on what you care about. Do not forget that. Okay? Do not forget that. All right, so I'm off my soapbox, but again, you want to use your money wisely when it comes to this stuff. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, you were raising your hand. I'm sorry about that. Go ahead.
I was curious, do those premiums go up depending on the number of salary times?
Yeah.
Okay, that's what
Yeah, and it accelerates. Because that's a good point, because it accelerates, and people are like, this is getting crazy because you're making more money, and then it bump up all the way up. So it can get kind of salty because of that too. Now option C. Option C is coverage on your family, and you have a choice of multiples on this of 1 through 5. No, a multiple on option C for your spouse is $5,000 worth of coverage, and on your kids it's $2,500. So if you do the math on it, $25,000 is the max on your spouse, and on each kid it would be $12,500. Okay? So listen, this is not mutually exclusive. If I elect option C, everybody's in the program that's in my family. I can't say I'd like to cover the spouse but not the kids. It doesn't work that way. If you cover one, you got to cover them all. The only choice you have is the number of multiples. Now here, I want to point out something here. Kind of important. You see where it says withholdings per multiple? If insurance is a pricing a risk, what type of person gets the best bang for their insurance dollar? Somebody with what? What type of person? I mean, youngest, yeah, but what type of person? Somebody with what? A lot of kids. Somebody with a lot of kids gets a good bang for their buck. I had a guy in my class once that, I don't know how old he was, but he had 13 kids. So let's say he had no, let me explain that. I mean, I don't know. I don't want to insult him. He looked like he was in his mid-40s. Okay, so let's say he had 13 kids and he's in his mid-40s, and he's got a multiple of 5. Okay, that's $2.45 for 13 kids to have 12.5 and his wife to have 25,000. I mean, you're close to $200,000 worth of coverage, paying $245 a month. Let's say he's sitting next to somebody the same age as himself with no kids, covering their spouse only for 25 grand. That's it, okay? That's all. That's because no kids. What's their premium? Same premium. You have 100 kids, you pay the same premium as somebody with no kids. Somebody with a lot of kids, not necessarily a bad, bang for your buck there. Okay? Now, when your kids turn 22, they fall off of this. Automatically, they're not covered anymore. They don't fall under the definition of a kid. So they're off. Okay, so as that gentleman ages and his kids fall off, he keeps still paying the premium schedule. He's just covering less people until it's just him and his spouse. Does that make sense? This is the only thing I'm going to tell you to do in this class. This is the only thing. And this only applies to people who are widowed or divorced. If you have option C and you're widowed or divorced because you're covering your kids, when your youngest kid reaches age 22, drop the coverage. Why am I telling you that? They keep taking the money out of your pay. Did you know that? And they're not covering you. What's the word for that? It's called stealing.
Insurance.
No, it's called stealing is what it's called. So when, if you're single, I'm not talking about if you're married, I'm talking about if you're single, youngest kid reaches age 22, drop it. They keep taking your money. I've had quite a few people in my classes that were paying premiums on a death claim that was never going to be paid because the youngest kid was 36. I had one in Albany, 36-year-old was the youngest kid, 14 years of wasted premium. She was widowed. So, yes, sir, I'm sorry.
22, is that include children with special needs or disabilities? That's across the board, or is it?
That's across the board, but I believe, if I remember correctly, I'm speaking on the fly right now, and I can verify this, but I believe they have conversion privileges to a permanent plan.
Because they're always going to be independent. So that's
I'm sorry, say that again?
independent, it's about independence, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I believe, I'd have to verify that and source it, but I believe they have conversion privileges, just like you have it. I believe that you do have that. But I can source that and verify it for you, okay? Okay, same options is B. You can drop it, keep it, or pay your premiums to age 65, and then the premium goes to 0 until it reduces by 2% per month. Until a little over 4 years, 50 months, you're down to nothing, okay? Now, let's talk beneficiary designations. You had a couple questions on it. Let's get into that discussion now about beneficiary designations. Okay, let's first start out with what the definition of a beneficiary is. It's a part of the contract. It's called the consideration clause. Your consideration is to pay a premium. Their consideration is to pay a death claim. And you're directing where their consideration should be paid out to. You're listing a beneficiary. Now, a beneficiary is typically a person, but it doesn't have to be. It could be a charity. It could be a trust. It could even be a corporate. Anything with a taxpayer ID number you can leave money behind to. Okay? Now, you got two types of beneficiary designations. You got the primaries. Those are the folks first in line to receive your money if you were to die. Okay? You can list more than one. In the rules with beneficiary designations, everybody shares equally unless you specify something different. Okay, those are the rules. So if I listed just two people, it's 50-50, unless you say 60-40 or 80-20 or whatever you're doing there. Okay? Now, you got contingency beneficiaries. Those are the folks second in line to receive your money. Okay, if you outlive the primaries. Okay, now, the same rules apply there. You can list more than one. Everybody shares equally unless you specify something different. Okay? Same rules. So let me give you some beneficiary designation tips. So talk about the pros and the cons. First thing I want to talk about. If you know who you want to receive your money, you probably want to consider listing them by name. You want to consider listing them by name. Why am I saying that? And I also know it's what we talked about before off of your question. You call ABC, somebody like that, they're going to tell you to leave it blank. And the reason why is it avoids the ex getting the money. It goes to the order of precedence in your state, or in a lot of states, they would read your will and see what your will says, and then they would go according to whatever your will says. Which I understand. You don't want the ex getting the money. Okay? But like I said before, when you leave it blank, you're taking the asset and you're sending it through probate. Has anybody ever handled an estate for their parents? How long does it take for an asset to pass through probate? Okay. I don't know how long that is, but I'm telling you, it'll typically, do you have to fill out an estate tax return?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, okay, there you go. That in and of itself, that takes, I'm telling you, we're talking a year. Okay, beneficiary designations, I'm telling you, they get the check in 2 weeks. I just handled a death claim for somebody. They got over $400,000 inside of 2 weeks. Somebody died. Filled out the death claim form, death certificate raised, sealed, checks cut, boom, check 2 weeks. Now you got delays of a year. Yes?
So just to
arbitration.
No, because you got the IRS rules for the kids and the spouse.
Goes to the default beneficiary. It's not gonna, it's subject to probate. Yeah,
No-
insurance. This is
Yeah, because it's a qualified retirement account. We're talking life insurance here. That's a qualified retirement account.
not an IRA. There's other.
Yeah, because that's treated differently, because now you got the IRS, because you've got taxation on this. See, this is a tax-free benefit. That's the reason. That's a little bit different than what you're talking about there. Now, they just changed the rules on that with the Secure Act, as far as leaving money behind in the thrift. Okay? So we're going to discuss that too. You do have defaults on that. He's going to kind of complete the circle on your thrift beneficiaries. He'll complete the circle this afternoon. I'm going to hit on it a little bit right now. And we're going to talk about that, with spouse and kids. But he's going to bring it full circle this afternoon. So yes, you're correct in that respect, but it's because it's a qualified retirement account. I'm really more sticking within the confines, mostly towards your life insurance right now, primarily. Okay? Now, the other thing you have is you have costs with this. You've got court costs. I mean, again, you're paying court fees, attorney fees. You're paying stuff as you're processing assets through probate. I had a guy last week. The attorneys are charging them on an hourly basis. That's probably getting brutal. Okay? So they can charge you on that. The third reason. Well, let me explain what probate is. I call it, let me give you just a basic understanding what probate is. I call it the probate pipeline, okay? Let me explain what I mean by that. Okay, this is you, okay? And we got a pipeline here. At the other end of your pipeline are your heirs, okay? Now, upon your death, what they're going to do is they're going to take all your money and they're going to stuff it in this pipeline. Okay, and at the other end of this pipeline are your heirs. Guess who's inside this pipeline, though? Creditors. Let me give you a general definition. Creditors are inside this pipeline. Here's my point. That's all probate is. If you think about probate and what you're going through right now, all probate is a process of adding up everything you own and paying off everybody you owe. This money goes through your creditors. Anything left over will go to your heirs. But that's all that it is. Okay? Here's my point. When you name a beneficiary, money goes directly to them. Anybody notice anything about my picture? That's right. Payer beneficiary relationship assets are exempt from the claims of creditors. You leave it blank. Guess who's got claim to the money? The creditors do. Let me exaggerate this a little bit. Let's say all you have is like a life insurance policy for $1 million. You're dead broke with 50 grand of credit card debt and you die. You left the money behind to your kids. Credit card company has no claim to the money. A credit card company will call your kids. Your kids would be within their legal right to say, you know what, I'll take a picture of it for you, but you're not getting a dime of it. They would be. They would be within their legal right to do that. Yeah, here's me in Puerto Rico, spending it. Cancun. Okay? But they would be within their legal right of doing that. Okay, you leave it blank, it's going through the creditors. And the fourth and final reason that I was saying this is, a will can be contested. We all know that. Okay? Try contesting a beneficiary designation form and see how far you get. Okay? I want to hit on some of the qualified retirement account. It just came into my brain. I'm probably delaying this longer than I have to, but there was a case in the state of New Jersey, another important reason why you might want to name a beneficiary for a qualified retirement account. This happened about 2 years ago. I was reading this article in a planning magazine. This gentleman, I don't know where he worked. He wasn't a federal employee, but he worked for Johnson & Johnson. This happened about 3 years ago, I think, 2-3 years ago. He died. And most of his estate was his 401k with Johnson & Johnson, but he had rolled it into like Wells Fargo. I think it was Wells Fargo. He rolled it into an IRA. Anyway, when he rolled it, he didn't name his beneficiary. And he died at the age of 71. This was a few years ago. And He didn't name a beneficiary. It was about $350,000 in the account, and that was most of his estate. So he didn't have a beneficiary designation listed, so they read your will. In the state, it was in the state of New Jersey. In the state of New Jersey, they read your will. See if you have a will. He had a will, and it said, my wife gets everything. So they took the $350,000, and they said, well, you know, it's yours. And she had a choice. She could either take it as a spousal inherited IRA and take on the rules of his age of taking RMDs on it immediately, or roll it into her own retirement account. Those are your two options. Pretty simple. She was working, didn't need the money, and she wanted it for her retirement. She rolled it into her IRA account. Okay? Now, pretty simple. Everybody's happy. Things are going along. Guess who comes out of the woodwork a couple months later? A kid from his first marriage. Contests the will. And the court said, you know what? You are entitled to some of this money. As a matter of fact, they awarded him, the court said, you are entitled to a net of $108,000 from this. So what did they tell the current spouse or the widowed spouse to do? Give him $108,000. And she did. She pulled it out of her IRA account and gave it to him. He went his way, she went her way. Everybody's fine until when? Tax return time. She's doing her tax return. She owes over 50 grand. Okay, and this is the reason why. She had to pay the tax on it no matter what. There's no avoiding that. But guess what else? She had early withdrawal penalties. She was 54. There were two mistakes made there. One, had she taken on as a spousal inherited IRA, would have avoided the early age penalties at 10%. But that was the little mistake. What was the big mistake that was made there? He didn't name a beneficiary. Had he named somebody, it wouldn't have went to court. He wouldn't have found anybody to take it to court. So, you know, but again, you leave it blank, or you filled it out, and you're happily married, and you got a problem there too. And that's the reason I know why they tell you to leave it blank. I'm just, explaining the 4 reasons why you might want to list them. And just review, I'm a bigger proponent of listing them and then reviewing them. Making sure.
How often can you change it?
Much as you want. But make sure that you get, I've had people that have submitted the forms. You want to get a confirmation that they made a change.
You can change it at any time.
Yeah, but make sure when you change it, you got your beneficiary designation change forms. Just make sure that you get an acknowledgement from them that it changed, and keep it for your records. And they should be listed in your EOPF. It should be reflected in there too. Okay? So the other thing I would say to you is, a lot of people don't know this on your life insurance. Not only can you control who gets your money, you can control how they get the money. A lot of people don't know that. Did you know that on these forms? You can control how they get the money. Okay, that's good. It's good that you know that. No, with kids, one's responsible, one's irresponsible. You could say, I had one, she had 2 kids. They were total opposite. One owned a business, was married and had a kid. The other one was in a rock band, in and out of drug rehab. It was from 2 different marriages. But she said on that one, look, if I die, older son, you get half on the date of my death. She wanted to treat him equally, like 50-50. And she said, younger son, you don't. She said, pay him out. She told MetLife, pay him out 20% on his share on the date of my death, and then release, I think it was like every 3 years, release 20% to him. And MetLife will hold it and pay interest and that type of thing. That way you got more control from the grave. Because I've had people go, well, I'll just set up a trust. You could do that. The problem is you're going to pay about $1,500 for an asset. You could get it done for free here, just by taking advantage of the form. You could get it done for free on the form, if that's your asset you want to do that with. Okay? This probably doesn't apply to anybody here, but if you have a growing family, you can use legal definitions like all children born by self and spouse, all adopted children, all children born by a former spouse, all lawful children. You can use legal definitions so as you have more kids, they automatically are included. I had 5 kids, but I was always worried about that. You got all these forms to change, and you're like, did I disinherit a kid? You're always worried about that. So for me, I was. We'll talk about a little bit of what we were talking about before. Death benefit proceeds on life insurance policies are paid out tax-free. This is the best asset to leave behind in your benefits. The best asset to leave behind in your benefits. It's tax-free. Income tax-free. What's the worst asset to leave behind in your benefits? This is the best. Traditional thrift. What happens when you die with a traditional thrift? Your kids, I'm talking your kids. I'm talking about legacy, like he was talking about. Kids are given a choice with the Secure Act now. One, you can take the money over a 10-year period of time. That's curtain number one. Curtain number two is take the money in a lump sum. My question to you is, which one do you think they'll choose? Yeah. If you think they're taking it over 10 years, you're dreaming. Okay, they've got mortgages to pay, kids to put through college. Yeah, you can have $400,000 tax-free, or you can take it over 10 years. Yeah, see what they do. That money gets taxed. This is the reason why I'm saying it's the worst asset to leave behind. That money on that day gets put on top of their income. It's taxed at the highest marginal rate. So what I'm trying to tell you is this: treat your benefits how they were designed to be treated. Okay? Your thrift is designed for you. It's not designed for your heirs. It's designed for you. That's how it was designed. It wasn't designed like as a legacy asset. It was designed for you. Life insurance is designed for your heirs. It's a legacy asset. Don't mix the meanings of this. And the reason why I'm telling you this is I've done reports for people. You know, when we're doing a gap analysis or projecting their income, one of the questions I ask is, how much income would you like to see coming out of your thrift, percentage-wise? You know, I'd say I would do 4, but you do whatever you want. I've had people go, don't touch it. Don't, like it's their sacred cow again. Like, don't you touch that. What are you talking about? It's for the kids. Might as well say it's for the IRS.
See, but this is where it gets confusing, because you know, your statement, thrift is designed for you. And
It is.
Insurance is designed for your legacy. But we just spent the earlier 15 minutes talking about that insurance is designed for your temporary or permanent need.
Yeah, if you have a temporary or permanent need.
So
But if you have a legacy
you're
asset.
defining legacy is that's your value. That's your value in a permanent need, is what you're saying.
Sure.
Yeah.
Legacy is a permanent need. Absolutely. Legacy is a permanent need. But this is where the inefficiencies are created. Okay? And this is what I'm going to heck with that. I'm using my hand. Okay, this is the problem and what I mean by a legacy asset. And again, I'm going back to the same old thing. It's a values-based decision. Some people care about this, some people don't. Okay, but this is the problem, legacy-wise. Okay, and I've had this happen. Okay, you got a whole bunch of money. I had somebody in Philly that got a report done. 2 CSRS employees, 2 federal employees. They both had $400,000 in their thrift. And, you know, after hearing about the Roth thing that we go through, they were like, we want to move $800,000 into a Roth. Can you show us how? I'm like, no, I'm not. I said, talk to somebody else. And they were like, why not? They were like insulted. I'm like, because when you're filing your tax returns next year, you're going to be suing me. I'm like, I'm not doing that. Because you're going to be taxed on $800,000? Are you not? I mean, I'm like, you go talk to someone. You're not talking to me. And they were like, well, no, they were like, you don't get it. You don't get it. It's for my kid. And I want them to get, because a Roth would be paid to them tax-free. Am I right? It would be. So they're like, so we'll move it into the Roth. The problem is, who's standing between you and your kid, even in that? IRS. See, here's the problem. They had one daughter, okay? My point is, they thought if they died with it, they didn't want to touch it, so they thought, you know, before the class, well, if I die, it goes to the kid. They didn't want to touch the money. This was their legacy asset. The problem is, between them and the daughter, the IRS is here, and the toll is probably going to be in the neighborhood of 35%. That's your toll to pass it to the kid, to go over that bridge, right? So here's the problem. They were like, let's move the whole thing to a Roth. Because now we got the Roth, and that'll go around the IRS, and it goes to the kid. But guess who's here on the other side? You got another toll. It's the same toll. They're here too. They got a toll here too. And if you do it in a lump sum, it's 35 cents. Now, there's an option here. You can do a slow roll it periodically, and keep yourself out of a 35% tax bracket, which you can do. Now, the downside of that is you have to live long enough to get it there. Does that make sense? Okay? You got to live long enough. So the other option, and that's where, I just want to make sure I got your eyes. So that's where what you were talking about before. Maybe instead of slow rolling it to a Roth, take like an RMD, like 2-3% of that lump sum, and put it toward the life insurance. Now, it still goes through the IRS, but if it's 3-4%, that would buy you a lot of insurance, is my point. Immediately. If you were hit by a bus the next day, now you've got an immediate estate, and that goes around right to the kid. So with the only reason I'm bringing this up is because what you said, because you're dealing with it right now. Does that make sense? Now you're paying tax. You got the IRS sitting here, but at least you're not doing a lump sum, and you've got an immediate estate. You don't have to live long enough anymore. What I'm trying to tell you is treat your benefits how they were designed to be treated. You got to think differently, that's all. Just, again.
That's not term, that's gonna be in a universal or whole life type.
Oh yeah, you're going to have to do one of those routes. Be careful with a UL, but you could do it with that. Make sure you know, this is between you and me, make sure you know the guaranteed premium and you stick to that if you're going to do that, because it's risky to do it that route. Okay.
Yeah, just curious. So if you're at a point in your life where you don't really have any major things to worry about life insurance,
Then don't do it.
okay. But you still want to have some money set aside for your kids to bury you and everything else. Would it be wise to just, is there an option to start investing or just put the money that you would have put it into life insurance and put it into some type of an account that you can just give to them without getting crushed?
Yeah, you could do gifting. You just have to live long enough to do it. You can do what, 15 grand a year, I think now?
And just do that in lieu of your life insurance, like,
Sure. You just have to live long enough to do it, to get it all over.
so it's just 15,000 years.
Yeah, with your spouse, it can be as 30. It can go up to 30. And you can gift as many people as you want. That is a way of doing it. Gifting is a way of doing it. You're absolutely right. You just have to have enough people, and you have to have enough spouses. No, I'm kidding. Multiple marriages. No, I'm kidding. But you can do that, yeah. You just have to live long enough. Gifting's not a bad way of doing it. You know what I found with gifting, though, is people don't want to give up control of their assets until they're like way, way, way up there in years, and then it's kind of, you've waited too long. Do you know what I'm saying? Yeah. You kind of waited too long to do it. It's a good idea to do that, but you got to do it. You got to start doing it early enough.
Is that limit for you, the 50, or is that per?
No, per person that you gift to. Like I have 5 kids. My wife and I can gift 30. That's a lot of money. Not that I'm looking to do that, but you know.
But to your point, where you just drew up there, how to get around the IRS gatekeeper, that's another line like insurance went right to the child. If you've got 400 in your thrift, and you know you're gonna have thrift left behind,
Yeah.
the next 3 to 5 years, every year, donate 15 or 30 to.
Yeah, you can do that.
That gets out of the IRS gatekeeper, right?
Yeah, and yeah, these are all ways. And you got to be thinking this way. See, this is the thing. This is where the inefficiencies are created. The inefficiencies are created because when we're younger, what are you focused in on? Building wealth, right? And then what happens is we transition, our values change. We instead of caring about building wealth, you're getting ready to retire, you're caring about how do I get at this money the cheapest way possible. And that's where their world kind of blows up. They're going, oh my God, I should have been doing the Roth. Oh my God, I can't get at my money now. And then it goes into the third phase, and that's the final phase, and it's the shortest phase. How do I pass this on to others? And that's a short phase, and some people never get to that. They're like, I care less. Hey, I put food in their stomach, clothes, whatever they get, they should consider themselves lucky. And that's okay. Listen, it's based on what you care about. If you care, great. And that's the reason I'm saying, if you don't care, then you shouldn't be doing any of it. And it truly is a values-based decision. It truly is. And that's, again, that's how you got to look at it,
Is there a number of years that you can gift?
No, you can live, a gift is long as you want. If you move assets out of your estate, like for long-term care or some estate taxes, if you move above and beyond that, there's a 5-year look-back period on that. Right. That's the bigger consideration for that. It can, usually that's a bigger issue if you got quite a bit of money. It's a bigger issue with long-term care and Medicaid. That's usually where it's a bigger problem. Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
another cap rate of 15 or something?
Well, it gets applied to your estate taxes. I don't know whether there's a cap. I'd have to take a look at the cap on it. Yeah. That varies by, that also varies by state too.
My dad asked the attorney directly, can't I just give my kids each this amount of money?
No, not in a lump sum. You can't go above, well, you can, it gets applied to your estate tax deduction.
Once a year, like, but they said, they frightened him away from that from the same thing you're talking about. the loan. Because if you were to give away all your money, and it comes time for you needing that long-term care, they do a 5-year look back, and somebody has to be responsible for paying that.
Yeah, and the other thing is too, with gifting, a lot of people go, I'll gift it to you, but it's my money. If you show any incidences of ownership, and they'll believe me, they investigate that stuff. They'll bring it right back in.
Yeah, 5 years of your.
They call it incidences of ownership. If they see you and your kid throwing money back and forth to each other, no way. It doesn't wash the puppy.
Discourage that because, like you said, everyone has different types of children, even the grown or whatever, spouses.
No, but that's the reason these forms work pretty well in a circumstance that you're talking about, because you have a different level of control on it, where you can stipulate how you want it paid out. But listen, I got the MetLife number at the end of this module, the O'Fegley office. Give them a call and tell them how you want to leave the money behind. Like, just don't start writing things in the beneficiary designation form, because if you're not a good writer and you word it in a way that they're like, what do they mean? Your beneficiaries will have it'll be a mess. Call them and tell them, this is what I would like to see happen. They'll do one of two things: tell you exactly how to word it, and then they'll review it, or they'll type it up for you, you review and go, okay, that's what I want. You sign it, you're good. Just don't start writing stuff in there. Okay? Talk to them first.
Just talk more about the giving the money away.
Yeah, again, you just be careful. Listen, I always defer when you're talking to an estate planning attorney. I will always defer to them. I'm sure they have some very specific reasons regarding your very specific circumstances. So I'm not going to, again, I don't know you well enough, but
Hide the money, whatever.
Yeah.
But what if your son Joe spends all your money? And you don't
yeah.
have it?
And that's where trust can come into play. But but again, for certain for certain assets, a trust will work well. What I'm trying to tell you is, if you're worried about your life insurance, you can do a lot that a trust does through this. That's all we're saying. Okay? Okay, let me finish up with this. I'm going to give you a quick break. You guys are asking a lot more good questions today. You guys were pretty quiet. Well, you were talkative at the end. You were pretty quiet at the beginning. Now you're really talking, which is good. I'm glad to see that. Okay, unless specified, per capita rules apply. If you're single, this matters. If you're married, you take your break. Listen, if you're married, this is not as big of an issue, I have found. But if you're single, this could be pretty important. Okay, now what I'm about to do here is for somebody that's single. I just want to give you an example of how per capita works. Okay, let's say you have 2 daughters. And let's say your 2 daughters have 2 sons. I'm just going to keep this simple. I don't want to complicate it at all. I just want to show you how per capita works. Okay, now I don't have percentages listed here. Okay? So they each get 50%. Does that make sense? Pretty simple. So, and I got 4 here. So that means they get 25%. Is that fair enough? This is like really simple, easy peasy type of stuff. So that means if I outlive the 2 of them, they each get 25%. Now this is how per capita works. God forbid, and I mean God forbid, I outlive one of them. Under the rules of per capita, this one's now entitled to 100% of the money. Okay, I mean, somebody, yeah, that's true, that's right. That's kind of a problem if you care about the other side, is my point. Okay? So if this one died, you've disinherited this line. Now you can solve this problem for free. Now how you solve it? It's called per stirpes. This is a legal term. It's Latin for down the stripe. And what I mean by that is if I put Sarah Smith per stirpes, Samantha Smith per stirpes. Okay, if this one dies, it goes down the stripe to the other 2. These 2 pop up to get the other half. So they each get 25 and it stays at 50 here. All because you put those 2 words after the name. Okay? If you're married, it would go to your spouse, so it's not as big, you know what I'm saying? It's not as big of a deal. But if you're single, that's kind of important. Okay? All right, listen, you guys asked some good questions. Let's take I got to give you a break here. So we're going to come back at 10:30. According to my watch, it would be like 8 minutes. I'm going to try to get you another break because I want you focused for healthcare. Because I got a lot to cover in healthcare. Okay, so take a quick break, come on back in. But I'm going to do about 8 minutes here, okay? I appreciate your time and attention.